What's up, guys? I think it's fair to say it's been a while. I mean, it feels like kind of only yesterday that I said I'll be making more videos like this next year.
I plan on making more videos like this than the new year.
So I guess, sorry for dropping the ball on that front. Things have just been super busy recently. The world's been mental, as we all know. But otherwise, as you might hear, things have changed for me. I've got 2 children now. But the real reason I haven't shot much is actually I've been really busy taking pictures. A lot of that's been surf photos though. So some of you may have found me on Instagram. You're right, buddy. Some of you may have found me on Instagram, and if so, thank you for checking out. Follow me. I'm not really posting much on there now. I'll put a link below to my Telegram, which is where I've been updating with recent shoots and stuff. But I've really wanted to make another video. It's been a while since I've made one. A few people have asked, so thank you. I appreciate the interest in that. I thought a really good way to make the video would be to combine my photography and my surfing connoisseur, my surfing interest. So, wow, is that a surfboard, buddy? Dada, a surfboard. This one's yours, isn't it? So I thought a really cool way would be to combine my surf photography and my surfing connoisseur. A lot of my photography's been surf-based, and actually fulfilled a long time ambition not that long ago of getting a water housing, proper water housing for a camera. So I thought I'd show you guys how that looks and what I've got and what it is. And here it is. It's Salty Surf Housing. I won't go too much into why I chose this over other competitors, because I think that'll end up being a whole video in itself. And there's a lot of comparisons and benefits to this housing over others. And there's a lot of benefits of housings have over this. So if people did want me to talk about what I considered important for me and how I made the decisions, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to cover that. But as I say, it's probably about 20 minutes in itself. So just looking at this housing, the pros, cons and benefits and stuff, I thought it might be useful to people considering buying one themselves. I've got this for a Sony A6500, so it's quite a small camera. Obviously it doesn't therefore take up much space and therefore be that heavy. It is a metal build, so that probably adds a bit of weight compared to some housings. It is also though a real funky custom spray job. I'm not sure how clearly you can see that. I'll try and lighten things up a touch. That gives you a bit more of a better idea how we're looking. This is obviously just a cover, go straight through obviously otherwise. Give you a look at the back panel, that was quite an important thing for me. I ordered with the single trigger grip with the double press trigger. It was quite important for me to be able to focus. I also surf with pretty chunky thick gloves on at least half the year in the North Sea, so you need a bit of feel to it. There are some much cheaper housings. What worried me about those was that they're almost a flat button. I was worried you wouldn't feel it. In an ideal world, I think a trigger would be great, like on the Aquatech housings. I think Liquid Eye too have one that's quite like that, but this was a happy medium for me. The actual weight of Salty Surf Housing says 900 grams for the housing with the paw and the trigger grip. That's about 1.98 pounds. And the housing is depth rated to 20 metres, so far deeper than you're going to go in any surf session, hopefully. I ordered it with this one port, the M70. I believe that means it's 70 millimetres. I ordered that because I did a bit of research before buying it, and it meant that I could get 2 lenses, a 24mm and I think about 60mm. Which both work with the one port, which was ideal for me. I've noticed actually since that Salty don't seem to stock this M70 port anymore. I don't know if that's intentional, because I did realise you could pretty much get a whole range of lenses for it. I think right down from bordering on wide angle, less than 24mm anyway, right up to about 16mm, maybe more, that would all fit in this, so that was great. I think now they offer a 65. I'm honestly not sure of the compatibility on that, but just something to be aware of. It works on this screw entry system as a lot of the housings do. I know Aquatech have now foldy flap cover things. Obviously that's much easier than messing around with all these, especially when your fingers are cold. And I was about to say, but it's never let me down, although it has let me down once. It was probably user error. I was swimming out and noticed noticed a load of fog on the back. I was like, this is unusual, I've not had this before. Turned around to look at the ports, moisture check, there wasn't any fog on it than anything else. And I noticed some actual water inside, so I pretty quickly got out. As I said, I think that could well have been user error, maybe me not tightening it. I did slip on the way down to the beach, so it could well be that some mud and dirt got in there, and that little bit of dirt was enough to break the seal for the water. Other than that, it's not letting me down this system, it's just a bit fiddly. One thing that was really important to me was being able to shoot manually, and you do get that sort of, I think, as standard on most of the Salty housings. You've got a fairly full back panel with access to most of the buttons, although it was less than I initially thought. I actually had to do some reconfiguration of the back buttons. I was finding that the button was pressing in the wrong place on my wheel. It's meant to give you access to the ISO, but I was finding when I was twisting it, it was actually accessing the HSL section, I think it was, or it was changing the tone of all my colours. Again, that may have been user error on my part, and I do need to look back at that and check what that was. You have access to the viewfinder and the LCD screen, so whichever is a preference to you, you're able to use, which is great for me. Personally, a big fan of the viewfinder. I don't know if it's because I've been shooting on a standard SLR for so long. It's sort of habit for me to be looking through the viewfinder now, but as well, on a bright day, the LCD screen's not always perfectly visible. In terms of what the manufacturer says the back button access gives you to, I'll just read quickly off their website what it says. So it says you've got your top shutter button control, which is here. I personally don't find myself using that. I think it's quite hard to reach even without gloves on, but once you're in thick chunky gloves as you are on my coast, it's an absolute nightmare to get to. Although I am tempted to in summer try shooting that. There is, as big as it is, there's something quite comfortable about holding it this way. And you could use your back button focus, there's access to that too. You've also got your custom button access here, which I think I have configured up as ISO, and I can't remember what I've got my other one set to, but you can set them to whatever you want. Twisty buttons top dial, so as standard I believe that's shutter speed control, but it may be aperture. It's one of those things that you always do it so automatically when you're doing it that I can't remember off the top of my head. You then have what I have set up as back button focus, and you also have access to the button, which on the Sony A6500 is actually on the side to record video, so if you want to do some videography in the water you can too. Here you've got, this is the select button for the back of the camera, and this is your wheel control. As I say, it's designed so that when you press, it accesses the ISO, or you can just control your aperture by twisting. And I turned off my ISO access, and I found the button was sometimes pressing on it by accident. Rather than user error or the camera, the housing being an issue, it might have been a mix of the two, in that, again, I'm in thick gloves when I surf. I'm not necessarily as dexterous as somebody in warm water might be, so it might be that I was pressing down on it by accident while I was twisting it, so maybe a bit of the two there. Then finally at the bottom we've got access to our delete button, which I've also got set up to turn my screen on and off. It's something you have to do because your camera's in here. It automatically detects a face, so turns it onto the EVF. So if you want to use your screen, you need to set the delete button up so it'll screen control. It's handy to have, even though I'm not a screen person normally. When you're in the water, it's handy to have. And then also you have your playback. Look at the pictures you've shot. Always tell myself when I go in not to waste my time doing that between sets. You only miss waves and you drain your battery down, but I end up doing it all the time anyway. You just can't wait after you think you've got that shot to have a look. So I'll just show you guys what it looks like inside for those who are interested in just being nosy or wanting to buy one. So this is the inner on the faceplate. You've just got this big foam thing here and here just to stop your camera moving. I think I've snapped this off at some point and it's kind of re-adhesed itself to it. Is adhesed a word? Stuck, you know what I mean. So I'm just kind of careful with that nowadays. Obviously got your O-rings, one on the port as well, pretty similar but much smaller. Cables to attach to the camera. And then here is the inside for those who are interested. Sorry if it's a little dark. Don't want to blow everything out either. But yeah, so that's the housing really in a nutshell. I think it's a great housing. It's done me really well. I've got some pictures I'm really happy with. It's a really good cost compared to some of the competitors. It's still expensive. It's far more expensive than a GoPro, but if you're serious about your photography, the pictures you can get on a normal camera do far exceed a GoPro. I say normal camera, it's still a mirrorless, sort of more expensive than a GoPro camera, so it's again not to be sniffed at. A setup like what I've just showed you cost me about 1,800 and something Australian dollars. That may have changed now. It was a year or two, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago that I ordered it, so it may have changed. As I said, I don't even believe the exact same setup I ordered is available. I don't think that M70 port's there, but it's something I recommend looking at the ports before you buy it. Think what lenses you're going to use. I actually bought this whole camera lens setup to use in this housing. I think it worked out cheaper for me to get this camera body, a lens, maybe two lenses, and the setup that I've just showed you than it did to get a housing and ports with backplate and everything from Aquatech, which would have been my number one choice, to be honest. I've never used them both though, so I can't compare about my use of both and which one's better in that sense. Salty has been great. As I say, I've had my issues especially when I was first going out with it, with buttons being pressed and not set up right. You obviously, looking at the backplate, you don't have access to your buttons. I'm a Canon shooter really. I got this Sony setup just to use in the water, so knowing which button was which was a bit of a faff, and I was finding myself doing the wrong thing in between sets with big buttons on in cold water. But that's what's so fun about it as well. It is a challenge to get good pictures in the water. Another advantage to these over the GoPro, you can use lenses which aren't so wide angle and are a bit more telephoto, which give you, for me, I love that telephoto look, so it's great. And I've actually, in the next few weeks, I'm hoping to order a telephoto port, so I'll be able to get some really telephoto shots. Another thing I have to compliment Salty on was their setup instructions. They send you, there's a little printout of how to set it up properly and a video with a QR code to a video on how to set it up. I found that really helpful. I've been doing photography years. I've had very little experience of water housings. I've been on a workshop with Tim Nunn where he sort of introduced us to them. We got to see them, but unfortunately the surf wasn't ideal for us to get in the water, so I never got to use one. And even if I had, I think I had to refer back to the setup instruction the first few times after using it. But a few things just to make sure you've got it right. Obviously you've got an expensive housing and you're putting expensive equipment inside it, so you want to do everything you can to make sure it's right. It definitely becomes a bit of a job making sure you do it the night before. In terms of negative points, because there's negatives to everything, as I said, I had a bit of an issue with my control access, with the wheel button accessing a menu that it shouldn't have done and changing the colours. That was definitely infuriating the first time I used it, and I keep caveating it, but I do want to stress that may have been partly my error, it may have been the circumstances causing it. But once I had that set up and all changed, okay, I've got a really weird setup on the back of my camera now where the buttons don't align to what they say they are, because I need it that way for my housing, and it's easier just to keep all the custom buttons set up as they are. And I think that might be another video that'd be really useful to share with people, because there are some really useful tips and tricks for setting the camera up for housing that I end up with my camera living in these modes now, because I use it more for water than I do for anything else, or the changes are livable when you're doing other stuff anyway. But little things like turning Bluetooth and Wi-Fi off, not draining your battery when you're in the water, not using it anyway. So maybe that's another video I can look at doing in the future. It'd be probably useful for me to look back at, because when I do change the settings off, getting them back set up right for surf sessions is really important. The only other really negative point I can pick up on is these things, the screws. They're a pain in the ass. It's sort of 5 below zero, you're rushing like hell to get down to the beach before the sun rises, so it's not quite light yet. The surf's right, the tides are right, and you're messing around these screws, dropping them everywhere. They do send you some spares. I think there was a couple of spares in the pack I got, so you've got a bit of a get out of jail card if you lose some. They're also not too difficult to go and buy more if you had to, but it's just not ideal. It's the new Aquatech system looks amazing where you can just sort of clip and seal it. I accept though that for what you pay for these, some top of the range brand new system which Aquatech have only just introduced doesn't align, and I'm happy to pay the lower price for the screw system, but it doesn't take away from the fact it is a negative, it is a pain to use. Overall though, I really would recommend the system I've got for a beginner to the water. Someone just like me it's perfect for. I've been taking pictures for a long time now, shooting from the shore, shooting other sports like cycling and boxing, things like that for a long time. So I always had a debate whether I was going to take pictures of the surf or get in the surf. It was always really difficult for me to decide. One thing I hoped by getting the water housing is that I'd take that debate out of my hands and it'd be a little easier just to get in the water anyway, and I can shoot and be in the water. And it has. I've almost ashamed to say I've not surfed for a long time, because every time it's been good I've wanted to get in the water with my housing. We've also had lockdown in which the UK will not be able to travel to the coast at times, which has sucked, and it is what it is. But this particular setup, it wasn't cheap, but it was cheaper than a lot of the options. So if you are looking to try it out and not spend too much money, see if you like it, see if you stick at it, see if you can do it, it's a great option. There are even more beginner options if you're really not sure. Aquatech have their phone Axis Go system. GoPros are obviously an option. They were what I used to get in the water with before, to see if the whole concept was right to me, and after I'd done that a few times I really knew that I wanted a water housing. So it's sort of like that beginner going on to intermediate stage. Again, it's a lot of money to spend at that stage, so you want to be sure, but if you either not got the thousands it's going to cost you for a pro range camera, or you don't want to spend that, it's a great option. I'm not sure what the Salty housings are like on the bigger cameras. They do them for right up to really big video cameras. It is a metal construction, so I imagine they're slightly heavier than some of the options out there. And no, it doesn't float when you're in the water. It kind of has this, it sinks slightly, shall we say. I know some of the other brands, the plasticky brands, are more, I don't know if they're plastic, so don't take that as what they're actually made of, but they look at that construction, they float more. So that's a bit of a negative point as well that I didn't mention earlier, because it's not something which hugely bothers me. I mean, the metal construction too, for safety, if it hits you in the face you're screwed, but I suppose if it's a decent height surf, whatever the housing's made of, if it hits you in the face you're screwed. So all in all, yeah, I would recommend the Salty surf housings, particularly for these smaller housings, and particularly if you're sort of entering the water housing market. And if anyone's got any specific questions though, drop me a message in the comments, drop me an email, find me on social media, not that I use it much more. In fact, the best one to find me on now is probably Telegram via my photography account, so I'll put a link to that below. I'll also link to a few albums on my photography website, so you can see some of the results I've achieved with this camera. And then again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm really hoping I can get back on the video train and do a few more. I'm hoping that combining it with my surf photography work makes it a bit easier to do both at the same time. And there's certainly some things more surf heavy, surf video wise, that I want to get into this winter, this coming season. So I'll hopefully see you guys a bit more. Do all the usuals though, hit the like button, comments, message me, subscribe. It's been so long, I've almost forgotten how to end a video, so I'm going to end it there.